Hey guys, I made this simple online highscore system in Godot using only Google Forms and Google Sheets, which is pretty cool, I think. So basically I made this Google Forms document where I have two questions. First one is name and second one is points. So we are going to store name of our user and how many points they have. Then we have this forms document connected to Google Sheets, so it's automatically connected to this document. And right now we have one user, Stan, with 100 points. So when we click the update button, it should update the database with this user called Stan. And yes, he's here. Stan has 100 points. So let's try adding more users. So let's say that we are going to add a user called Adam. And we are going to give him like 399 points, for example. So let's add it. And now the response has been registered. It's here. And when we update the database, it's here. So Adam is in our highscore table. It's sorted from the highest to the lowest. So if we add someone called Peter, for example, and we give him value of points that is between 100 and 399, so let's say 250, it's going to be in the middle. So let's update our table, and yes, Peter is in the middle. So the cool thing is that if we type Stan again and we give him 300 points now, it's going to update the value instead of adding another Stan. So let's update it now, and Stan is in the middle now because he has more points than Peter. So today I'm going to explain to you how you can make something similar in Godot using only Google Forms and Google Sheets. So we will be making this online highscore system. There are some advantages and some disadvantages to doing this in Google Forms, but we will talk about that later. Obviously, for larger projects, I would recommend having a dedicated database and not using Google Forms, but I still think it's pretty neat for smaller projects or someone starting with databases. So we will start by creating a new Godot project. I made this new project. I just created some UI elements like buttons and so on. So it's empty project. We just have buttons that we can click. We can type our name here and our points here. So I'm sure you can create your own UI and we'll be just doing the networking stuff. Before we start, I just want to say that I'm not a native speaker, so I hope you can understand me. And yeah, you can let me know in the comments if you could understand me all right. So I made this scroll container where we will be adding our users. So I have this user scene where we have name and points using label. And yeah, we will be storing names of our users here with their points. So let's add some empty users to this margin container. And let's duplicate them a bunch. So yeah, we can scroll through the users just fine. So this is how it's working. The user also has a script. They basically have a name variable and points variable. And in the ready function is just setting the corresponding labels text to these variables. This is just a tween that I use to make it nicer. So yeah, let's delete these users and we can start with our highscore system. Yeah, I forgot to say that obviously I have these buttons connected with signals. So I have pressed update and pressed add. So it's going to get called when I press these buttons. And in the ready function, I set the scroll containers scroll bars width to 0 so it stays hidden. And obviously I referenced the our user scene to this variable user panel. So yeah, this user scene. So yeah, let's start working on our new empty project. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a new Google Forms document. So we're going to create a blank form document. You can name it, but you don't have to. Let's call it highscores. And now you want to add a new question for each variable you want to store in this database. So we are going to store name of our user and how many points they have. So let's say name here, and let's add a new question and let's add points. We want to store it as text. So we are going to select short answer in both of these questions. And yeah, that's basically it. So you are going to click send button and click here on the link and copy this link. So you are going to open this link in a new tab and you are going to hit F12. And now we want to add a new user to the database. So let's add our Stan and let's give him 100 points and click submit. So now you want to scroll all the way up here. By the way, we are in the network tab, and click this form response. So then you want to go into this payload tab, and we have some information that we are going to need here. So we have this entry and some numbers, and entry and some numbers here as well. So we have Stan here. So this is related to the name of the user, and this is related to how many points they have. So we are going to need these values. So yeah, just write it somewhere so you don't lose it, and we will be using it later. So you want to make a new variable now called, we can actually make it a constant, and we are going to call it something like URL and submit, because we are going to use this URL to submit new data. And you want to copy this link, and you are going to paste the link that we got after submitting the data here. So it should end with form response. Yeah, so link like this. So now we are going to be working in the pressed add function because we want to add a new user when we press this button. So we are going to create a new HTTP request, and we are going to store it in this variable. So let's add HTTP request, and we're going to make a new one. So now we are going to add a signal to this node. We're going to add a request completed signal. So this is going to get called when the HTTP request finishes. And we are going to call this function HTTP submit, for example. And we are also going to add our custom argument here. So we will be passing the HTTP variable into this function, and that is because we want to get this node and destroy it after the request has been finished. And we need to obviously add child HTTP into our scene. So let's create this function that we are calling. So let's create a function HTTP submit. So we are going to have a bunch of arguments here: result, response code, headers, body, and our own HTTP argument that we are passing through here. So let's keep it empty for now. We have the HTTP request, and we are going to request something now. So we are going to say http.request, and we are going to pass our URL submit here. Now it needs headers. Yeah, I forgot about that. We need to add a headers that we are going to use. So let's make a new constant called headers. And we are going to say, yeah, I copied that. And you need to put this in array. So this basically tells the HTTP request what headers to use. So yeah, let's continue. So we're going to add our headers here. So then we can say false here. This basically means like if you want to check if the website is secure or something. We don't need to check that here. And then we are going to add a method post because we are actually posting data. And here we are going to be posting some data. So we're going to make a new variable called user data, and we are going to put it here, user data. So now we will be using these values that we wrote down here. So we are going to make it a dictionary, and we are going to copy the first entry number, and we are going to set it to the name that we wrote down here. So we're going to get a text from this line edit node. So we are going to say, I actually made it actually gave it a unique name. So we can just drag it here, and we are going to get text from that. And the second entry, we are going to do the same. We're just going to give it the points here. So yeah, just like that. So before we can pass data like this into our request, we need to change it a little bit so the website understands it. So first we need to create a HTTP client. So we're going to make client, HTTP client new. And now we are going to use the client's function called query string from dictionary. And we are going to put this dictionary inside. And now it should work. So what this function basically does is it basically converts a dictionary like this into internet string like this. So we have equals and yeah, it basically makes it so the website understands this string. We actually want to store this request into a variable, and this way we can check if it went without any errors. So we are going to write if error, and if some error happened, we are going to delete this HTTP node that we created. So we're going to delete it immediately. And I'm also going to add else here. And this basically means that if everything went okay, we sent the data, then we are going to empty these line edits. So we're going to set them to empty string. So let's add user name and user points, and we are going to set the text of them to empty string like this. So this basically gives the user some sort of feedback that everything went all right because the line edits have been emptied. In the function HTTP submit that gets called after the request finishes, we want to also delete this node. So we're going to get HTTP node from this argument, and we are going to delete it as well. And yeah, that should work. So we can try submitting the data through our app now. So if we go to responses, we have one user here, but we want to add another user using our app. Let's add, for example, Peter, and let's give him 399 points. So let's click add, and yeah, it worked. Peter is here and he has 399 points. Now, to get this data, we actually can't get it straight from Google Forms. We actually have to link it. You have this button link to sheets. So let's click that. and we want to create a new spreadsheet. So let's call it database or whatever you want. And we're going to create a new sheet. So now all of the Google Forms answers are going to get automatically stored in here. So to get this data from our spreadsheet to Godot, we are actually going to need to convert this data into JSON and then send it to Godot. To do that, we are going to use this OpenSheet API. It's basically this website that we are going to use. So just copy that website, and instead of spreadsheet ID, you are going to copy this long line of text and you're going to paste it here. And instead of tab name, you are going to paste the name of this tab. So you can actually rename it. I'm going to rename it to data. And we are going to say data here as well. So now when you press enter, you should have the JSON data here, but it says the caller does not have permission. That means that we have to give people on the internet permission to get this data. So to do that, we go to File and Share with others. So you want to change it to N1 with link, and that should do the trick. Now it should work. So let's refresh it, and yes. So now we have our data in JSON format. So we have name Stan, points 100, name Peter, points 399. So this makes it very easy to use in our Godot project. Copy this link. Let's add a new constant variable. We are going to call it URL data, and we are going to paste this link here. Now let's start working on our pressed update function. So now we are going to copy code from pressed add function and we are going to paste it into pressed update function. But we obviously need to change some stuff. Let's change the function that gets called after the request finishes first. So let's call this one HTTP done, for example. We don't need user data anymore in this function. So we don't need that. And instead of method post, we are going to use method get, because we are getting data, not posting it. And we are going to change the URL to URL data. We don't need to do anything if the request goes well, so we don't need that. So we are going to make a new function. This one is called HTTP done. And we can actually delete this. Okay. So now we want to add users to our table only if the request goes well. So to do that, we do if and we do not equals result. So this basically means that no error happened, everything is fine. And let's add a new variable called data, and we are going to store data that we get into this variable. So to get the data, we are going to use this body argument. So we are going to say body dot get string from UTF-8, I believe. So what this basically does is it converts the data that we receive into string. So we can print the data that we get now, and let's try that. Okay, I forgot to delete this. Now this obviously can't be here. So let's try it now. And yeah, we get data. Now we want to make an array from this string. So to do that, we are going to use function parse JSON. And we are going to put it inside. Now we can loop through this data. And let's print it. So yeah, we get each user separately here. Now all we have to do is create a new instance of this scene. So let's say user equals to user panel.instance, and we are going to add this user to this margin container. So we're going to add child user, but before we add the user as child, we need to change their name and the amount of their points. So we are going to say user.name, and we are going to change their name and their points. By the way, the points are also as string. And we are going to say from n, just select name, right here, name. We want to get name from this dictionary, and we want to get points for our points, obviously. So yeah, that should work. Let's try it out. Let's update. And yeah, we have Stan and Peter. But if we click update again, we are going to get new Stan and new Peter. So obviously we don't want that, so we have to clean or clear this table before updating each time. So in the user scene, I actually added this scene to group called user. So now we can go to our script. So we are going to say get tree.callGroup. So we are going to call function for every node inside that group, so inside user group, and we are going to call queue_free, so we are going to delete every user. So now when we play it and we update, we get Stan and Peter, and now we update again and we get Stan and Peter again, so it's working fine now. But there is a small problem, it's not sorted from highest to lowest. So if we add someone called Steve and we give him a bunch of points and we update it, the Steve is at the last place and we don't want that. So we could actually sort it in Godot, or we can use Google Spreadsheet, and that makes it a lot easier. So if we click at this C, and we sort by Z to A, it actually sorts from highest to lowest. But now if we add someone new, Joe with 10,000 points, it's not going to get sorted, so we have to manually go here and click sort again. So obviously we are not going to be sorting manually each time, so we are going to automate it. To do that, click on Extensions, Macros, Record Macro, and we are going to record a new macro of us sorting this column. So click on the entire C column and click Sort Z to A. And Action 1 Sort Sheet. That's good. So we're going to save this macro. You can save it as sorting, or you can name it whatever you want. So I added a new user and it's still not sorted correctly. So what's happening? So you actually need to go to macros, manage macros, and you want to edit script. And here we have a macro that we just created of us sorting the C column, and we want to automate it. So let's go to triggers, and we want to add a new trigger. We are going to call it from spreadsheet, but on form submit. So it's going to get called every time there is a new submission. So let's save it. So let's add another user and try it out now. So let's add Martin with, for example, 7,000 points. Let's add him and it gets sorted automatically. So now when we update our table, it's correctly sorted from highest to lowest. Now there is a small problem. If we want to update Stan's points, let's say Stan again, and we want to update his 100 points to 400 now, we are actually going to be adding a new user Stan instead of updating the old Stan. So maybe you could figure out a way to delete old stan from this table and only keep the new one using the macros or something like that. If I figure out how to do that, I'll keep you updated in the comments below. But for now, I came up with a solution of just getting one stan from the table and ignoring the rest. This is not an optimal solution because later when you have thousands of players updating highscore database each time, it could get pretty big, but for now it's working okay. For now I came up with a solution that works as follows. So we're going to make a new variable called first occurrence. We are going to clear this array every time we have a new result. So let's clear it here. So now inside this data that we got, we want to check if first occurrence dot has. So if it has this name that it got, and we want to check if it doesn't have this name. So if it doesn't have this name, it's going to add this user. And we want to add this user to first occurrence because it occurred first time. So we are going to append this name, and yeah, this should basically work. So now every time you update someone, only one version of them will be in the highscore table. So we have only one stan, and now if I add another stan with higher values, so let's do 765, and we do add. So yeah, okay, let's add more. Let's add stan 7650. Yeah, let's add. And yeah, here it is. So stan is at 4th place now. So this is the solution that I came up with. It probably could be done inside this macro, but I'll figure it out maybe and keep you updated. So the API that we are using can actually take up to 30 seconds to refresh. So if you want a solution that is a little bit faster, you can actually go to your spreadsheet and instead of edit, you type here this, and this basically downloads a txt file of all the users instantly, so you don't have to wait up to 30 seconds. The API doesn't always take up to 30 seconds, it's pretty fast usually, but this is even faster. But this is the data that you get from this link, and to actually use it we will have to change our code a little bit. So we actually don't care about any of this, we actually want to get just this up to this. Yeah, so this is all we want. So we will have to edit our string that we get. So you need to update this link that we are using from OpenSheet to this one that we got. So this is how I did it, and let me explain what's exactly happening. So we get the data as usual, and then we actually find rows. So we find rows, it's here, and +6. So we go 6 positions to right. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everything behind that is going to get deleted. After we have this string, we are going to find parsed num headers. So it finds it here. And we are actually going to go from 0, so from here, and up to this. So yeah, I also added a column here, so it goes up to here. So everything after that gets deleted as well. So we end up with this string. We make array from this string because it's an array. And then we are going to get C, so everything from this, so that's up to here. And we are going to get second position of this array, so 1, because this thing is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So we're going to get 1, and we are going to get we, so Joe. So this is how you get a name. And then points you get by going to second position, so here, and you get we as well, so you get 10,000. And here you actually get it as integer or float rather, so we are changing it to string using this. You have to edit the string a little bit, but the advantage is that it's much faster and you don't have to wait up to 30 seconds using the previous API. So let's try it out if it's working. Update. Yeah, it's working instantly. So let's change David to 9,000, for example, and it should instantly change to 9,000. Let's change David to 9,001, and yeah, it's instantly changed. Obviously, if you type a value that is lower than the highest, so let's add 8,000 to David, he has 9,001 currently, so it's not going to do anything. He stays at 9,001. But obviously in your project or game or whatever, you are going to be updating the highscore database only when the user reaches a new highscore. So yeah, that was all. I hope you liked my first video where I was actually explaining things in English. I hope you understood me. And yeah, bye next time.